Well, we'd like to welcome everyone to the My Horse University and eXtension Horse Quest live webcast on body condition scoring. There's an app for that. The presenters for this evening are Kathy Anderson and Colleen Brady. Kathy is the Extension Horse Specialist at the University of Nebraska. She oversees the Youth and Adult Extension Horse Program and teaches undergrad courses in the Animal Science Department. Dr. Anderson currently teaches courses in horse management, equine reproduction, and equine nutrition. Additionally, she has coached the University of Nebraska horse judging team. We also have Colleen Brady from Purdue University. She is the Horse Extension Specialist, and the focus of her work is on engagement towards youth and adults working with horses. Dr. Brady's research interest is in the implementation of distance learning technologies in informal education, with a focus on STEM learning in the context of equine and animal science. Please note that you are able to ask questions during the presentation via the chat on the left side of your screen, and there will also be time at the end of the presentation for additional questions. The webcast this evening is also obviously being recorded, and we will make that available on the My Horse University and eXtension websites. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy and Colleen.
Good evening. This is Kathy Anderson, and you're going to get a little bit of a tag team approach in this webcast between Colleen and I. I'll do the first part, and then Colleen's going to talk a little bit more about some things with our body condition score app that we have that we want to show you tonight. So I think as we start off today, I think Gwen had a poll that we were going to put up just to find out, get a little bit of feel for some of those of you that are on the webcast tonight, and that's going to be if you would respond to this to see if, checking to see how many of you actually do condition score your horses. Okay, so we've got about 13 of you guys that have responded, and this is really great because it looks like the majority of you guys do. Somewhere about 70% or so of you guys have body condition scored your horses. So that's really neat, and we're very glad to see that. So a little bit maybe the first part of this presentation might be somewhat redundant to some of you, because initially what I do want to do is take just a few minutes and go through the condition score system. If you're already doing it, it might be a good review for some of you, and just kind of get everybody on the same page. And so as what we know is that when you do are going to condition score, the whole system really is basically going to be an indicator of how fat or thin your horse might be, and it's really a reflection of the balance between their energy intake and what their energy requirements are. It really does give you a really good opportunity to really pretty much objectively discuss, you know, what kind of shape your horses are in, if they're fat, if they're thin, if they're a little bit too heavy or a little bit too thin. We also know that there are a variety of different uses for the condition score system. And some areas, many of you folks, I would assume, are going to use yours on your own personal horses. You might use it, to me, if you are working in, say, a boarding farm or a breeding stable or a different kind of place where you have different kind of horses coming in, or you're just going to do a good job of monitoring your own horses. However, if you think about some other folks that can use it, it is used extensively in our court systems and the humane societies, really to look to see and quantify what kind of condition those horses are. And so when they go out on cases to look at horses that maybe are neglected or abused, they're going to look around at the other horses in the pen or location. They're also going to look around at the different kinds of conditions that they might be in, and really get a feel for that to see if these horses really are being neglected or really are being abused. The nice thing for those groups is it is on a numerical system, so it does provide just a number to say, yes, this horse is a particular condition score, making him a particular spot where he's too thin or too heavy, basically if he's too thin, and really has been used to admissible in court for those types of things. So it does a really good job of quantifying what the condition of your horses, of those animals are. So On our system, as many of you obviously probably are familiar, we're really looking at it on a scale of 1 to 9, with 1 being an extremely thin horses to 9s being the excessively fat. I've got a picture of Arabian on here, and it really can be used across species, across the breeds of horses, and if you get involved with other species, similar system is used in cattle and other types of animals. In our horses, again, we go on a scale of 1 to 9, and really we look to see the ideal horse somewhere being in a condition score between 5 and 7. And where you want your horse to stay is going to be a little bit of what production state they're in, what you might be doing with those horses, kind of the season of the year and some of those types of things. Now, it's important to understand that the method that you use, the correct method is really that it's both a visual assessment and also a hands-on assessment. We need to look at those horses and see what we see, but to do the best job, especially in times like this when some are going to have a heavy winter coat, that we do go and run our hands over them. So here's a couple of illustrations that you can use to remember the different areas that we're going to condition score these horses at. Right, so if you look up here on the body parts from the side, we're going to actually look and or feel down along the crest of the horse's neck, down through here, up here over that horse's withers, so in this area. We also need to feel and look here over that horse's ribs. We'll see how much fat cover they have or don't have here behind their shoulders. In addition, we're going to look down here on the horse's flank. Then we'll look at their tail head, see what kind of crease they might have down their back through this area, and from behind we'll also to see what kind of fat they might have on their inner buttocks. Now here's another schematic that you can see, that you can use looking at horses almost from behind. And again, this is set on our scale from the 1s that are very thin on up to the 9s that are very fat. And from behind, they should not look like a dairy cow. Okay, so from behind, the 1s and 3s are going to be very easily to see through their hip bones and down through their backbones. Also, from the point of their pelvis, you're going to have a fairly deep cavity as you look in through this area here. As we move into our more ideal condition scores of the 5s, the 6s, the 7s, you will see those dynamics change where they're going to be more filled out over their hip, filled in a little bit more through that body cavity. As they're getting a little bit heavier then, up into our 8s and our 9s, which are going to be on the flip side, on the heavy side, you also will see some horses develop a little bit of a gutter or a pouch down through here, and especially in your very heavy horses. Also, they'll be more rounded as you look at them from behind, and kind of very full in there through their flank area. Okay, so here what we have is a short video that I'm going to let Gwen play that we did that will go through and just show you how you can go through a horse and run your hands over them to do a good job of assessing their condition score. So Gwen will go ahead and play this video for you.
When we condition score horses, we're really looking to see how much fat cover they have over their body. And we need to do it in two ways. We both do a visual estimate of a horse or a visual appraisal of a horse that we look at all the various areas. In addition, to do the best job, we really need to run our hands over these horses. In the summertime, it's probably not as critical as it is in the wintertime, but here in Nebraska and our northern regions, when our horses get a heavy winter hair coat, it can really disguise the exact or the actual thinness or fatness of those horses. So when we're going to look at condition score, we're going to naturally look down over their shoulder. We want to feel and see how much fat they have here or behind their shoulder. We're also going to go up here around their withers and see how much fat there is here. We really need to go over and feel over their ribs in this area right here. We'll look to see if there's any kind of crease down their backbone. We'll also come and look for the amount of fatness here in their flank region. And then from behind, we also want to see any kind of fat that's depositing up here around the chest and also down here between their buttocks. And from behind, we can also look along the top line to see if they're developing any kind of crease down their back, which means the horse has gotten quite a bit heavy, quite fat.
All right, thank you, Gwen, and I think that just gives you a little bit of a more visual of how you might walk through and feel over those horses and look at them and assess them at all those different body parts, all those different areas. Now, I'm not going to go through all 9 condition scores, but I kind of like to take the very thin horse, the medium horse, and the heavy horse. And so I don't think anyone would argue that both of these horses are not very acceptable. And so our condition score 1s, you can really just think that they're very poor, very emaciated. Pretty much they look like a little bit of a walking skeleton. The shoulders and neck are easily noticeable. You can see on both of these horses, it's pretty easy to see kind of the outline of their skeleton. There's really, if you feel over them, there's no fatty tissue to be felt at all on any of those horses that are down as far as a condition score of 1. Kind of, I always say, it's just kind of a phrase I use, pretty much a bag of bones look, and it's not nice, you know, and unfortunately we do run into some horses that are in this kind of condition, and it's unfortunate when we see that. All right, a little bit better, kind of skipping a few of them, but getting up into the middle range, are condition scores of 5, which are basically going to be a fleshy horse. They're going to have a little bit of a crease down their back, as you can see from this horse here, a little bit of a crease down his back, but really not excessively. If you go and run your hands over their ribs here, they're going to feel spongy over their ribs, but you're going to easily be able to run your hands over and still feel those ribs. Also, if you look, we're going to see a little bit of, and be able to feel a little bit of fat being able to deposit behind their shoulder, just a bit, not to the excessive things, also along their neck and their withers, and in all those different areas. So then we're going to flip to our heavier horses, our condition scores of 9. Okay, these basically are going to be our extremely fat horses. If you look at them from behind, and it's difficult to see on this picture, but there's going to be an obvious crease down their back. In addition, they're going to feel very patchy over their ribs. It does not matter how hard you would push, you're not going to be able to feel any ribs on this horse at all. All right. In addition, they're going to have a lot of bulging fat up here over their withers, along the crest of their neck, down here behind their shoulders, up here at their tail head, and pretty much all those areas are going to have be excessively fat. The fat along in their inner buttocks, if you would raise this mare's tail up, actually the thighs would probably begin to rub together to some degree. So these again are going to be extremely heavy or extremely fat horses on the other far end of the scale. And also right here within their flank, it's going to be very filled with fat. So I think it's very easy for most people to really look at these two horses and know that this yellow horse here is basically going to be undesirable. You can condition score her somewhere between, I'd say, a 1, 1.5 to 2. It's always a little bit deceiving on an actual photograph, and they're going to look a little bit different when you see them live. This horse naturally is going to be very desirable. However, you can really see that I'm not going to be able to say if she's a 6, 7, or 8 without running my hands over her. I can see that she does have some fat over here. Can't see her ribs. Her withers are kind of filled in, same with her flank. And just from this picture, she's going to, I wouldn't say she's probably a 5 from what I can see. I would say she's somewhere a 6, 7, or 8, but I can't really tell unless I would run my hands over her. But she is for certainly much more desirable, or he is for certainly much more desirable than the yellow horse is over here. And again, kind of to just jump through the scores, these horses I have somewhere between a 1 and a 3, and really these are kind of pretty much what we would consider unacceptable. Pretty easy to say that this horse is down in that 1 to 2-ish kind of category. I would put both of these somewhere in the 2.5. This one's probably closer to a 3. And some people might argue that this mare is undesirable. However, it's pretty easy to see her ribs without even touching her. Same thing with her backbone and her withers. Up here over her neck and that, you can see it's pretty thin and pretty lightly covered. And so she's in that kind of borderline range, but we really would like not to have them in that type of condition. Kind of the borderline horses, and we'll talk a little bit on how this affects reproductive performance, are these two horses here. You can kind of easily see their ribs, and they're not offensively thin kind of in these different areas of their withers and shoulders. And similarly with this mare here, they're going to be in those borderline scores of probably, I would say, somewhere around a 4. Here's some other examples of some horses that are going to be what we would consider quite acceptable. Again, I can't tell you if any of these three are a 5, 6, or 7 without running my hands over them, but these are the kind of conditions that we would really like most all of our horses to be in. They look like in very good health, very good flesh. They've all got some bloom to their coat. Can't see anything outstanding on them. All three of these horses are going to be in that really nice range where we would hope most all of our horses would like to be, and we would like them to stay. Now we get to the obese horses, and I love this picture. It's kind of a funny one that I did find to kind of throw this off with the obese horses. We have to remember that being fat is not a nice thing. It's not something that we want. It's not something that we want our horses to be. This mare is obviously not quite as heavy as this mare is over here, but both of these are going to be somewhere in that 7 to 9, 8 to 9 type of range. And this mare might not look as fat to you, but again, when we took this picture, it's a horse that I do know, and I do know that she was up around the 8. We couldn't find a rib or any kind of skeletal structure on her at all. I will tell you that this is a mare that was mine that was pulled out of the pasture, and she really is excessively heavy. These kinds of horses we consider them the high-risk type of horses. There's no reason for them to be this heavy, and they are going to be more susceptible to various issues. They're way more susceptible to coming down with laminitis, metabolic bone disease, or metabolic issues, insulin resistance, and things like that. And so we really want to avoid those horses that are this heavy. Sure, some of them you almost have to feel like you just feed them grass hay and they stay heavy, but we really do want to avoid them. Here's another group of horses that we really want to kind of try to realize how heavy they are. These guys can be tough. This is a mini or this is a Shetland pony, and we have to be extremely careful of our little guys because they do gain weight quite easily, and we have to be very careful that we don't have them up in those heavy condition scores of an 8 or a 9 because we know how easy they are to develop laminitis. This is a fit halter horse, and they can be in the same boat. This I do not believe is a pregnant mare. I believe this looks like it could be a pregnant gelding because he is, carrying quite a bit of hay, quite a bit of belly to him. It's going to look a little bit different than some of our other breeds, and don't let the breed differences mask how heavy or thin a horse might be. These are some pictures that I always like to bring out, and when I talk with my classes, I'm always sure to bring up the hair coat factor. This time of year, their condition score can be extremely deceiving. We know, especially if here in Nebraska right now, it's single digits and it's extremely cold, and so most animals they fluff up when it's extremely cold, and that's one way that they do increase their insulation capacity. If you look, the birds flying around, they're going to be fluffed up, and in many animals, their hair coats are going to be fluffy to increase staying warm. However, don't let that fool you, because these little guys, these were some miniature horses that my husband got called out on an abuse case several years ago. And when you put your hands on them, and I actually did, I could put a finger between each and every rib of both of the ponies, of the minis, and also the burros. And it was extremely disheartening because these guys were so thin. They are honestly about a condition score of 2. And I know that when you first look at these pictures, you would not have a clue that they were that thin. So just be certain and be careful that when you're feeding these horses in the wintertime, that you don't let that heavy winter hair coat kind of cloud your judgment of if they're staying fat or if they're staying or if they've gotten a little bit too thin for you. I'm going to bring this back also to our reproductive performance in case any of you guys do have brood mares and raised foals. Some of the early condition scoring research was initially done on brood mares, looking to see what kind of condition and fat cover they needed to have before it began to affect them on a negative sense from the reproductive performance from them being able to breed and carry those foals. And what we know is that if those horses are condition score of 5 or below, they're going to have reduced reproductive performance and increased loss of those pregnancies. Reduced reproductive performance, we're looking at it's going to take them longer to be bred. That's also going to take them more cycles to conceive, and so something that we really do not want. If you look down here at this mare here, she's on probably a not very good pasture, and she is probably sitting down there in that condition score of about a 3, and she's going to be very questionable if she's going to go ahead and cycle back because she is in that poor, much lower body body condition that we know when they're down this thin will have negative effects on their reproductive performance. On the flip side, if you look at this mare here nursing this paint foal, she's going to be somewhere above a 5. And the research has shown that if those brood mares are above a condition score of 5, then the reproductive performance is much enhanced in that they'll come in and start cycling earlier in the year. They take fewer cycles per conception, meaning that these mares are more commonly going to get bred on the first cycle. Fewer of them are going to get bred on the second or third cycles, which really is the economic option, which is really much more preferred and much more the industry expectations. They're going to have an overall higher pregnancy rate, and also they're going to have improved pregnancy maintenance, meaning they're going to carry those foals to a greater degree than if they're too thin. So especially if you're dealing with brood mares, we want to make sure that they're above a 5, and really what we kind of recommend is that give those mares a little bit of a buffer zone. Many mares, once they foal, as they get into peak lactation like this mare has, they're probably going to lose a little bit of weight. So as those mares are getting ready to foal, and some of your mares were here to the latter portion of February, and so watch your brood mares right now and make sure that they are probably a condition score of a 6 or 7, so they do have a little bit of a buffer if they do go ahead and lose a little bit of weight after they've delivered those foals, because they're going to hit peak lactation right within those first couple weeks after they foaled, and right about the same time that we're going to be looking to rebreed them. So certainly be careful about that. Some other things that can affect their body condition, things that maybe we're trying to do a really good job on, and things for everyone to be aware of if those horses just are not maintaining their weight. They can have a variety of different health conditions, such as Cushing's syndrome, different types of things that just doesn't allow those horses to maintain their weight. How about dental health? I think we had another poll related here to dental care, and it really has a very huge effect on what we know as far as their feed efficiency and maintaining their weight. So a little poll that we wanted to ask you guys to respond to is to see how often you guys do have your horse's teeth checked. Okay, it looks like we have a pretty good number of you guys that have responded, and you must be awfully great horse owners because you condition score your horses. You're really good at doing a dental check on them. Most of you are doing it at least once a year, and that's really what we like to see, is that they're done at least once a year. I would bet some of you that are doing it every 6 months might have some older horses, might have some ones that you know potentially have some issues, and you do need to do it a little bit more often. Pretty much an annual basis is really what we recommend, and then occasionally it has to be done a little bit more frequently, and the horse will kind of let you know, if it needs to be done a little bit more often. Naturally, their age is going to have a factor as these horses get older. Some of their feed efficiency changes, also some of the ways that you're going to feed them is going to need to change as they get into their 20s and on from there. Also, we know that our feeding practices can have a very big effect on it, and some of this might change over the course of the year, but how we feed those horses, how good we are about keeping them fed at the right times, keeping enough forages and different things in front of them can have a very big effect on their body condition. All right, so I'm about ready to turn this over to Colleen, who's going to go through something that we're extremely excited about, because we do have a new horse body condition scoring app that's out there and that's available, and she's going to walk you through and demonstrate this app. But I think we wanted also to find out, before we run into this app, a few things about our audience to see. Can you go ahead and put up that next poll here to get an idea? And what we want to know is, just in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be with your horses, but how many of you actually do use a mobile app of some way, shape, or form? Okay, great. And I think that we would pretty much see that across the board, because apps are very common now. If you've got various different types of devices, a lot of folks are using some type of app. So that'll feed us into our next question, which is going to see, for those of you that do use some types of apps, what kind of device do you have that you might use those on? right? And on this one you can click all that apply because you might have a variety of different things that you do use those apps on. So just let us know, what you're using out there. Androids, the tablets, iPads, iPhones, iPod Touch, or something else. Well, certainly the Apple people would be proud because 60% of you guys, the bulk of you guys, are using Apple products, and so that's kind of what you see out there. I'm going to turn this over to Colleen now so she can go ahead and take you through and discuss and demonstrate the app that we have that we're pretty excited about.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And thank you again, all of you, for joining us today. I've been watching the thing, and Kathy was talking a lot about how cold it is in Nebraska. Well, I'm at Purdue University, which is in Indiana, and we've gotten up to 7 was our high today. So not only on the West Coast. And I've noticed it looks like several of you have been having a lot of snow. So we are super excited, as Kathy said, about this app, and here is actually the URL that Gwen created for us on where you can kind of get some more information. And basically what I did here is I put together a video in order to be able to show you actually how that app worked and what you push buttons on. Because it is a mobile device, it's not something we could easily put in this Connect. So we're going to go ahead and run the video, but if you have any questions, please do put it in the chat, and we can stop the video and I can address your questions as we go along. But we really wanted you to actually see how the app functions, and so the video was the best way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start it, and I'm going to actually have to put my microphone on mute, I think, or else you're going to hear it through your microphone and through your speakers and through me. So I'll be switching back and forth to answer any questions you have. So let me just mute my...
Hi, this is Dr. Colleen Brady from Purdue University and E-Extension HorseQuest, and the purpose of this short video is to provide a brief tutorial on how to use the body condition scoring app that has been developed by E-Extension HorseQuest, University of Nebraska, and Purdue University. This demonstration will take place on an iPad, but this app is usable on Android devices as well as iOS devices, and actually can even be used on your cell phone. So of course the first thing we do is we tap to open the application. Here I want to orient you a little bit to what you'll see on the first page. Let me just adjust this so you can see. Here in the bottom right hand corner you'll note that we have a Learn button and a Score button. One of the things that is unique about this application is not only does it provide you the tool to manage your horses and to observe your particular horses, but you can actually use this application to learn how to body condition score. I also would like to bring your attention to 2 items in the top. We actually have a button here that takes you to the E-Extension HorseQuest Learning Network's body condition scoring learning lesson. So I'll just go ahead and tap on that so you can see that comes up. And gives quite an extensive lesson, more than is included in the application. If you wish to learn more, all you need to do then to return to the application is push that button and close it, and it will bring you back to wherever you were when you left the application. And then one other important button on every app is of course the Help button, and that again is just right up there on the top row, and it will explain to you what you need to do if you have questions as you go through the application. So then what else do we see here? Of course we have the beginning explanation of what body condition scoring is. And then when you push Learn, you actually can go to a section here that will explain at each of these parts where we analyze the horse what you should be looking for. In this example of the loin, it gives that explanation, and then if you look in the bottom right again, you'll see that the number 5 is yellow. That means the image it's showing is an example of what a 5 would look like. If I hit the 1, it shows me an example of what a horse that condition scores 1 would look like, and if I touch the 9, it takes me to what a condition score 9 would look like. If you then go through each of the parts of the body that you analyze, the text up there explains what you are looking for in each part of the body. Of course, the photo stays the same at any given score because those scores are attained by analyzing all of these parts. Just a couple of other things on the Learn portion. There are actually YouTube videos. Here is a video that shows basically how you want to go over the horse and analyze the horse. This video is produced at the University of Nebraska, and Dr. Kathy Anderson is the presenter. Dr. Anderson is a key person in the development of this application. So then if you've done reviewing the YouTube videos, you simply again go up to where that help button is, you click that, and it takes you back to where you were in the app. So now that we kind of understand how the Learn part looks, let's go ahead and we'll move to the Score component. This is the part that is, we think, the most unique about this application. This is where we have the ability to actually take photographs of your horses, score those horses, and then maintain those images and pictures to keep a record for a horse. So how do I add a horse? I start by pushing the plus button, and as you see, it automatically fills in the date. We're going to go ahead and start a new one, and we're going to call it Tutorial, because that is what we're doing here, is creating a tutorial. So you just type in the name and you click Done. Then you'll come to this screen, which is actually slightly different, because what you'll see on this screen is, in this upper left hand corner, a camera. So you click on the camera, and it uses the camera in your device. I wanted to add a horse here for real, so we have, since I'm doing this in the computer, a picture of a model horse, and you just click the photograph button just like you would on your device normally, and then you'll see here in the bottom.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there 1 second. There's lots of different reasons you might want to do a retake if you're just not happy with the quality, if the horse moved at the last time, just that sort of thing. So that's just a little extra option there if you want to retake a photo. Just one other question I kind of have as we're going through this is if any of you work with youth groups. Because this is a great way, something like this, because you know, kids are all about being able to do stuff on their phone, about helping young people too, and especially since all of you already do your condition scoring, to help them learn this really important.
Photo. I'm satisfied with that photo, so I will click Use. As the photo then pops up in the full screen, you'll see on the top it has the horse's name. In the bottom right hand corner, the date. Oh, I just bumped it so it came to full size again. The date, and on the lower left hand corner, because I have wireless where I'm shooting this video, it actually gives the latitude and longitude, the GPS coordinates of where we are. I can just tap that photo again and it goes back and fits in the space. We think that latitude and longitudinal part will be especially valuable for professionals or people that are involved with law enforcement, because it does identify precisely where that picture was taken. So that
Okay, so I'm just popping in here again. And so like when Kathy had mentioned earlier that they had those horses that her husband, who's a vet, was called out on, they could actually take those pictures. And this is even something that if you're in a situation that you see a horse that you have concerns about or something like that, that if you have this app on your device, you could actually take that photo and share it with whoever's involved in addressing some of those issues in your community.
Analyze this horse as you would have learned going through the Learn component. Even though this app is designed to help you manage your horse, you still have to do the actual scoring, which involves touching the horse. And then you simply can record those scores here. So we're just going to kind of do it imaginary here. So let's say he was a 4. Of course, the Breyer Corporation, when they made this horse back in the 50s, he's body condition scores just like you should, right at a 5. But what I want you to show is that you can put an individual score according to what you saw in the Learn portion on each one of those areas that we view. And then as we complete that and fill in the last line, the Done pops up here, so you click Done, and this horse is
So again, Cheryl, like with your question about what do you do with some of these insulin resistant horses or some horses that are just super irregular and how they may lay down fat, this system will help you get to a pretty good number, and you'll be able to tell whether they're changing in each of those different areas.
So what if I am maintaining records on horses that I already have and I have an existing record? Well, I can put the name here. Laddie is a horse that's already in my case. Okay, so his name pops up, and then I get these 2 arrows. So when I hit the arrow, you can see that this is actually a photo of Laddie that's dated January 6th. And if I wish to go to today, I can add another photo of Laddie, which in this case is going to be the model again because we're not out at the barn. And so I can say I'd like to use this photo. Laddie on February 17th, 2015. And again, he goes back in there, so now we have 2 images of Laddie. So now that we have this, what can I do with this data? Well, in addition to the mobile application, we also have a desktop application that you can use. The Learn component on the desktop is very similar to what you saw on the mobile device. The Learn in the bottom, the score again, and then here just out of the screen here, let me tip this up a little so you can see it, you can actually still from the desktop version of the application go to the learning lesson and to the help. The part I want to show you specifically here on the desktop is if we select score, clearly you're not going to be carrying your laptop around to go out and score horses, but if I push on the plus button here, you can see that the horses that we did before are here. So I can click on tutorial, that's how we scored him. If I click on the date, there's the picture that we took on February 17th. Which you know was just a few minutes ago on the desktop. Again, I can select here, and there's Laddie. I click, oh, I think it's fetching his picture, and he is still present and accounted for from the picture we took earlier today. So I can select Laddie, click on the button, and there is the picture that we took earlier today. Then from here, I can actually select on the
mobile device will actually automatically, although Kathy might help me remember, they don't like, the app guys don't like it when we call it syncing, but that's an app guy thing. To real people, it's syncing. And so it'll take those animals from the device and update what's on the desktop. And that's why, even though I had just done these pictures, because they were in proximity, it magically worked.
Okay, this is a little test. Can anybody hear me? This is Gwen. Yes, sorry, I had someone was about ready to come into my office and vacuum my floor, so I had to quick go on mute. So let's see here. Everyone can hear me. Colleen, did anything change in your settings? Or Kathy, do you think you could talk for...
I'm trying to get unmuted. Colleen had disappeared off of our presenter's screen for just a second, and I see that she's back, so I'm going to assume that she's back in. Someone on the chat had a little question about how you would condition score a draft horse, and I mean, yes, we do condition score them. They're going to be probably a little bit different, but I think if you apply the same basic concept, their body types are going to be a little bit different, but I believe we really pretty much just use the same basic system as we go through those horses to go ahead and condition score them, and so it's really not going to be really all that much different. I'm not sure that I've got control of the video, so I'm not sure. Gwen, can I go ahead and continue to play it? Because I'm not sure where Colleen, was talking a little bit about on your desktop version that you can see with the printer is icon up here. And when you're on the desktop, the desktop version, it does give you the opportunity that if you click on the printer, then it will basically print what you see on your screen. And that would allow you to keep maybe a notebook, a catalog of the different records that you do have on those horses, you know, as a hard copy for them. The other thing that I believe she pointed out is when you do have the picture of those horses, it will give you the date on them. The other really nice thing is also it does give you the GPS stamp, the GPS location on them here, which for if you're trying to use this for any kind of official purposes or whatever, then that GPS stamp, basically the location stamp, is going to be on those images also for you. Okay, so Gwen, do you know, is Colleen the one that's directing the video? Because with that, I'm not sure.
Nope, I'm back.
Oh, there
Sorry,
she's
everybody.
back.
select Laddie, click on the button, and there is the picture that we took earlier today.
So we've been there a couple times.
Then from here, I can actually select on the desktop the print icon. So if I wanted to, I could actually print out this record. And so if I had a horse that I was maybe sending home with somebody, if I wanted a paper record, if I simply wanted to use this picture, include this in this horse's health records, I could do that. Then just one final question sometimes is, well, what do I do if I have a horse I want to remove that I no longer want in my database? And then all you need to do to remove a horse is to click on the trash can down here in the bottom corner. So let's say I decide, okay, I'm going to get rid of Dulce, because clearly there's a picture of Dulce, but that's from doing another demonstration. And I'm going to delete Dulce. Then I simply click on the trash can, and Dulce's record is gone. I just have our tutorial, and then I have Laddie. So that is basically how we use this application.
Okay, so that is the end of the video, and that is on the EX Horses YouTube channel. So you can sure go see it again without the glitches and bumps as I got bumped off my internet here. And there, Gwen, I think just put that info in. In regards to your question on Laura, with your older Arabian, if you're still riding him, the other thing that happens with older horses is they actually lose, just like unfortunately we do as we get older, we lose muscle tone. And so if the rest of him is in pretty good shape, I would guess that maybe you're losing some muscle tone there over that top line. And so if you're riding him still, if you actually work him in a low frame and like move him up to stretch down and stretch up to the bit, that'll help him get a little bit more muscling in that area. Some horses, conformationally, not my background's with Arabians, not typically Arabians have super sharp withers, but especially I noticed somebody earlier on here when they talked about their background, worked with thoroughbreds and stuff. Thoroughbreds will have often really nice high sharp withers, and so they might be a little thinner in that area, but if he's in generally good condition, that's part of why that score is an accumulation of multiple points. You can try to do some things with muscle building in that front quarter, but but at 35, if that's the only place he's thin, you're doing great. There you go. Look at and read what Cheryl just put. Any other questions for us? I think this is pretty much everything we had to go over. Like we mentioned, we are pretty excited. Kathy and I developed this app with some app developers out at UNL, and it was, actually I've joked many times, it's been like birthing a baby, and we're pretty happy it's delivered. So we're pretty excited about getting it out there and people being able to use it to help monitor their horses. Yep. Yeah, and the Purina Senior, if you're, do you wet it down, Laura? Because I've known some horses that if you wet it down, they can basically slurp it up. That helps some of those older horses also, especially those that are really having few teeth left. The desktop version, actually, if you he's a little picky too. The desktop version is actually free. You can download it off any of those. Just follow any of those links that Gwen provided. Also, another one that I thought of with the question about the draft horses that Kathy had addressed too. There's also another app that if you go. Let me see if I can find it without knocking myself off here again. One of our colleagues, just a second, I can't type and talk at the same time without, one of our colleagues up in Minnesota has actually developed an app that, and she was very excited because they just added the draft horse component about estimating, a weight estimating app. Oh, is that it? There you go. if you follow that link that Gwen gave you, it actually goes to someplace that you can go directly to where you get this app for the mobile version, the desktop version, and this other app called Healthy Horse, which actually is an app to help you estimate your horse's actual body weight with 2 or 3 simple measurements you can do with a measuring tape. And so that's another piece that you can incorporate into this, and especially with that draft horse. Like I said, they just finished doing the research on the app for that part, and now have that part up and available. So Kathy, did you have anything else you wanted to add at this point?
I was just muted so we don't get a lot of feedback. But yeah, no, I think you did a nice job of covering the app. We'll entertain any more questions while you guys are on there. And Gwen did put the link that you can go to our eXtension Horses page and look for mobile apps and find where you can download the desktop and also those other apps related to our horses. And so we just want to, it's only $1.99, so it's very affordable, and we want as many folks to get out there and start using it because I think you're going to like it quite a bit. So sure, we appreciate all you guys' time, and let us know if you have some more questions. We'll hang and watch the chat here for a few more minutes. Thank you all very much, and go get the app.
Okay, Kathy, I think I'm going to wrap things up a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll continue having the chat open here. Kathy, if you could mute real quick. There we go. And of course, if anyone does have questions, we can still answer them in the chat. But I wanted to bring up a few more things. One, it's really important that we get some feedback from you. We have a survey, and I'm going to put a link right here in the chat. Just a moment. There's a link to our survey. It will only take you a couple minutes to fill out, but will give us some feedback and help us as we plan more of these free webinars through MyHorse and eXtension HorseQuest. We'll also follow up to anyone that registered with an email here. You'll probably get that email tomorrow, but just wanted to give it to you here this evening as well. And also, we'd like to give you a little bit of information on our next webcast, which is Tuesday, March 24 at 7 p.m. And the title of the webcast is The Basics of Planning and Zoning for Horse-Friendly Communities. And this will be given by Christine Hughes, who is a senior planner and with the Planning Development and Transportation Department in North Carolina. So we hope to see you in March to learn a little bit about zoning and your horse. And finally, of course, I want to remind everybody that this webcast was recorded, and we'll get it up on our website tomorrow, so you can come back and access it again if you'd like to, or share it with someone else. And also, we'd like to definitely thank Kathy and Colleen for your time and putting together this presentation and being here tonight and talking with us. And of course, we'd like to thank all of the participants as well for your questions and for being a part of this evening. So we'll leave this open here a second to see if we have any other questions.
And this is Colleen, and I just added a little bit there to it. If you wonder sometimes why we do these evaluations, we submit a fair number of grants to try to support the efforts that we do here through MyHorse University and eXtension HorseQuest, and the feedback from these evaluations that we can use not only helps us with future programming, but also when we're trying to convince a grant funder that, hey, this is worthwhile, people are finding this useful. Having that survey information really helps us, to recruit funds so that we can so that these can be free, and so we can develop things like that app. So those are really important for we really need your help there, so thank you very much.
All right, well, it looks like we're not getting any more questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and close out this webinar for this evening. So once again, thank you. Hope everyone stays warm that's in a cold area of the country, and we hope to see you in March.